Listen closely, because what I am about to say is not ordinary, and it is not meant for a passive heart. It is meant for the one who has tried, failed, fallen, broken, and yet despite everything still feels something burning inside, something whispering that your story is not finished. That whisper is not your imagination. That whisper is not your emotion. That whisper is God calling you back to the very battle where you once lost. Because this time you will not fight it alone. This time you will not walk with your own strength. This time you will rise with God. There comes a moment in every life when the weight of disappointment becomes unbearable. A moment when your plans crumble. A moment when the door you knocked on refuses to open. A moment when your strength proves too small, your ideas too weak, your timing too wrong. And in those moments, something inside you begins to feel tired of trying, tired of hoping, tired of believing. But hear me now, God allows you to come to the end of your strengths so He can introduce you to His. You did not fail because you were weak. You failed so you could discover the one who is strong. Many people quit right before the greatest shift of their lives. They walk away because they think the closed door is a rejection. They assume the failure is a sign that the dream was not for them. But when you walk with God, a closed door is not a rejection, it is a redirection. A failure is not a conclusion, it is an invitation. An ending is not the death of destiny, it is the preparation for a divine beginning. You see, when God enters the story, everything that once defeated you becomes fuel for the victory that is coming. Every setback you faced was not the signal for you to stop. It was the signal for you to shift. You tried before with your fear, with your confusion, with your uncertainty, with your doubt, with your loneliness, with your impatience. But God is saying, try again, but this time with me. Because the moment you align yourself with God, your weakness becomes a weapon, your tears become oil, your past becomes testimony, and your failure becomes fertilizer for the future that God has already prepared. Some people think trying again means repeating what they did before. But when God says try again, He means try again with a new heart, a new mindset, a new spirit, a new posture, a new endurance. God is not asking you to repeat the old version of you. He is asking you to rise as the transformed version, wiser, deeper, more grounded, more surrendered. Because the version of you that failed was not the version of you that God intended to bless. Hear me. God does not bless pride. God does not bless self-dependence. God does not bless stubborn independence. God blesses surrender. God blesses obedience. God blesses the one who comes saying, without you, I cannot rise. You see, many people attempt life with their own strength. They push forward with their own understanding. They fight battles with no spiritual armor, no divine guidance, no higher alignment, and they wonder why the world crushes them. But when you step into life with God, everything changes. The same path that once felt impossible begins to open. The same mountains that once felt immovable begin to shift. The same wounds that once kept you chained begin to heal. Because where you once walked alone, now you walk with the one who created everything you thought was standing against you. There is a reason you feel called back to the dream you abandoned. There is a reason you feel drawn to start again. There is a reason you cannot forget the desire that lives in your heart. It did not come from you, it came from God. And if it came from God, it will not die until God fulfills it. You tried before? Yes. You tried with good intentions, yes, but you did not try with God-centered vision. You did not try with the God-led strategy. You did not try with the God-strengthened endurance. That is why you felt alone, overwhelmed, defeated. But now God is pulling you into a higher realm of strength. God is lifting you from the ground where you once fell. God is saying, get up, not because you are strong, but because I am with you. When God steps into your life, He does not simply repair what broke. He transforms it. He does not restore you to where you were. He elevates you to where you were meant to be. He does not bring you back to the beginning. He brings you forward to the divine appointment you were born for. God does not waste the pain. God does not waste the tears. God does not waste the failures. Everything you lost becomes a tool in His hand. But listen carefully. God cannot fight for you if you still insist on fighting alone. God cannot pour into a heart that is still filled with pride. God cannot guide steps that refuse to move. God cannot elevate someone who is still clinging to fear. Surrender is not weakness. It is the gateway to divine strength. Trying again with God means allowing God to rewrite the blueprint, redefine your timing, rewire your thinking, and realign your heart. It means trusting that the delays were not denials. It means believing that the losses were lessons. It means understanding that the pain was preparation. You did not walk through everything you endured for nothing. God was shaping you, stretching you, sharpening you, strengthening you, preparing you for the very thing you once felt unprepared for. And that is why God is calling you now. Not to look back in regret, not to live defeated by what happened, not to drown in shame or fear, but to rise with the confidence of someone who knows that the Creator of all things is walking beside them. God is telling you the story is not over, the failure was not final, the battle is not finished. Try again, but this time with me. When you walk with God, every step becomes intentional. Every move becomes guided. Every opportunity becomes divine. Every storm becomes temporary. Because God does not simply open doors, God builds them. God does not simply make a way, God becomes the way. God does not simply strengthen you, God fills you with a strength that does not break under pressure. You have no idea how powerful your life becomes when God steps into it. You have no idea how quickly things can shift, how suddenly blessings can unfold, how rapidly breakthroughs can rise when your heart is aligned with the one who controls all outcomes. You tried before in your timing, try again in God's timing. You tried before through your logic, try again through God's wisdom. You tried before with your plans, try again with God's purpose. But hear this clearly. When God tells you to try again, He is not asking you to return as the same version of yourself. God is calling you to rise as the version He shaped through the storms you survived. Every tear you cried sharpened your insight. Every disappointment expanded your spiritual capacity. Every long night built endurance. That comfort could never teach you. God does not send you back into the battle empty. He sends you back equipped with everything you did not have before. You may not see it yet, but what you carry now is different. What you understand now is deeper. What you discern now is sharper. What you feel within you now is the weight of God preparing you for a victory that was impossible in your former state. There are moments when God allows life to strip you, not to punish you, but to remove what was weakening you. God removes the people who drain your spirit, the habits that rob your energy, the beliefs that poison your confidence, the environments that suffocate your purpose. God simplified your life so He can amplify your destiny. You lost some things, yes. You walked away from people, yes. You felt things break inside you, yes. But you did not lose anything that was meant to remain. God does not subtract unless He intends to multiply. And God does not cut unless He intends to heal you stronger than before. Trying again with God means recognizing that your spiritual foundation matters more than your physical strategy. You once moved with ambition, but now you move with alignment. You once chased approval, but now you seek God's direction. You once acted out of fear, but now you rise with faith. This shift is not small, it is everything. Because without alignment, opportunities become burdens. Without surrender, blessings become distractions. Without God, success becomes hollow. But with God, even the smallest step becomes powerful. Even the smallest seed grows into abundance. Even the smallest act of obedience opens the door to a future you never imagined. And listen closely. God is not calling you to try again in the same place with the same expectations. God is calling you to approach the situation from a higher spiritual altitude. What defeated you before cannot defeat you now because you no longer stand where you once stood. You have climbed spiritually. You have risen internally. You have matured in ways that no one but God could see. You feel it. You are not who you were. You are more aware, more awake, more grounded, more anchored. Your spirit has grown, and the growth is not accidental, it is divine. This time, when you try again, you are stepping into life with a sharpened awareness of God's presence. You are stepping into the unknown with the certainty that God goes before you. You are stepping into challenges knowing that God strengthens you. You are stepping into opportunities, trusting that God opens the right doors and shuts the wrong ones. You no longer operate by luck. You operate by divine order. You no longer depend on chance. You depend on God's decree. This gives your steps stability. This gives your heart confidence. This gives your soul peace. Some of you are afraid to try again because your last attempt broke you so deeply that you still feel the echo of the failure. But understand this, God will never call you back to a place of defeat unless He intends to turn it into victory. God does not bring you back to shame you. God brings you back to rewrite the ending. The place where you felt humiliated is the same place where God intends to honor you. The place where you felt small is where God will elevate you. The place where you cried is where God will cause you to rejoice. The place that once wounded you will become the place that testifies of God's power in your life. You need to understand the weight of divine timing. You tried before when the soil wasn't ready, when your spirit wasn't steady, when your mind wasn't prepared, when the people around you weren't aligned. Timing is not just about preparation, it is about spiritual synchronization. God aligns moments with purpose. He arranges circumstances so they meet destiny. He shapes you until you are capable of carrying what you once asked for. And when everything comes into divine alignment, God says, now try again. This time, when you move, you will not move with desperation, but with clarity. This time, when you speak, your words will carry conviction because they come from a place of a spiritual depth. This time, when you plan, you will plan with the guidance of a heart that prays. God-centered effort creates God-ordained outcomes. You are not returning as a defeated soul. You are returning as a vessel filled with God's strength. And let me tell you something profoundly important. God will not allow the same storm to break you twice. The storm that once overwhelmed you has already become part of your training. You learned how to endure when you wanted to quit. You learned how to pray when you felt lost. You learned how to trust when everything looked uncertain. You learned how to stand even when the ground beneath you felt unstable. That storm was not your enemy, it was your tutor. And God uses what you learned so that when you try again, you stand unshakable. Trying again with God does not mean returning in fear. It means returning with the confidence of someone who knows that God goes before them, walks beside them, and strengthens them from within. You walk differently when you know your steps are guided by the one who controls all outcomes. You stand differently when your heart beats with the assurance of a divine purpose. You rise differently when you understand that God is not sending you back to fail. God is sending you back to finish what you started. And hear this now. The blessing God is calling you toward is bigger than the pain you endured. The breakthrough God has prepared for you is greater than the disappointment that once crushed you. The reward God has positioned before you outweighs every sacrifice you made in the process. God sees what you do not see. God knows what you do not know. God understands what you cannot yet comprehend. And because God sees ahead, God is guiding you with an authority that transcends everything you fear. Some of you think your delay is a punishment. It is not. It is protection. God delayed your breakthrough because your spirit needed strengthening. God delayed the opportunity because your discernment needed sharpening. God delayed the answer because your foundation needed rooting. God delayed the elevation because your heart needed cleansing. If the blessing had arrived earlier, you might have mishandled it, misunderstood it, or misused it. But now God says, you are ready. Try again. And your readiness is not based on your perfection, it is based on your surrender. God moves not through the flawless, but through the willing. God uses the heart that bows, the spirit that trusts, the soul that seeks. When you try again with God, you walk into a future where failure can no longer hold authority over you because your authority now comes from God. There is a moment in every spiritual journey when God allows you to see the difference between moving with Him and moving without Him. When you tried on your own, everything felt heavy, your thoughts were scattered, your plans were fragile, your confidence was inconsistent. But when God steps into your steps, something supernatural begins to rise inside you. You begin to feel a peace that is not logical, a clarity that does not match your circumstances, a courage that does not come from your personality, a strength that goes far beyond your physical capability. This is the evidence that you are no longer carrying life alone. This is the evidence that God has taken hold of your journey. Trying again with God means recognizing that the invisible world is more powerful than the visible one. It means understanding that your breakthrough is not a product of a coincidence. It is a product of a divine orchestration. When God decides to shift your life, no force on earth can stop it. No opposition can block it. No delay can cancel it. No fear can interrupt it. When God decrees movement, everything around you must align. People, circumstances, seasons, opportunities, even obstacles, they all rearrange themselves to serve the purpose God has placed within you. Some of you have been fighting battles that were never meant to be fought alone. You carried the burdens that were meant to be surrendered. You tried to fix things that only God could heal. You tried to open doors that only God could unlock. You tried to force timing that only God could prepare. But now, with God guiding your path, you begin to understand something profoundly liberating. You were never designed to be your own source. You were created to rise through the strength of God. This time, when you try again, you will not fight in exhaustion. You will fight in empowerment. And listen carefully. God is not calling you to try again in the same emotional state. This time, you are rising with a purified heart, a refined spirit, and a renewed sense of identity. You no longer see yourself through the lens of your failures. You see yourself through the lens of purpose. You no longer carry the shame of past attempts. You carry the wisdom that past attempts taught you. You no longer move like someone wounded. You move like someone awakened. Trying again with God means stepping into your purpose with intentionality. It means making decisions that align with your spiritual integrity. It means walking away from environments that weaken your faith, from people who drain your spirit, from thoughts that sabotage your progress. You begin to understand that the company you keep affects the clarity you carry. You recognize that your surroundings influence your spiritual sensitivity. And because you are trying again with God, you become more protective of your peace, more selective with your energy, more aware of your boundaries. You begin to move like someone who knows that God has invested something sacred inside you. And hear me, God is not asking you to try again out of desperation. God is calling you to try again out of destiny. There is a reason the dream refuses to die. There is a reason the desire keeps resurfacing. There is a reason your spirit remains restless when you try to walk away from what God called you to do. Purpose does not disappear because you took a detour. Calling does not dissolve because you experienced a setback. When God placed something inside you, it will speak to you even when you attempt to silence it. That is how you know it is divine. This time, when you try again, God is not only guiding your actions, God is shaping your character. You learn to move with patience instead of rushing. You learn to act with wisdom instead of reacting out of emotion. You learn to trust the process instead of panicking over the timing. God does not simply elevate you, God prepares you for elevation. And the deeper the preparation, the greater the destiny that awaits. Some of you felt abandoned in your last season, but in truth, God was not absent. God was working in silence. There are seasons where God withdraws the noise so you can hear what truly matters. Seasons where God removes distractions so you can see your purpose clearly. Seasons where God isolates you, not to punish you, but to transform you. You cannot rise with God and remain the same version of yourself. Transformation is not comfortable, but it is necessary. God is shaping you into someone who can carry the weight of what you once prayed for. And understand this time when you move forward, you will move with a deeper spiritual authority. This authority does not come from status, achievements, or appearance. It comes from surrender. When you surrender to God, you gain a strength that cannot be weakened, a clarity that cannot be corrupted, a peace that cannot be shaken, and a resilience that cannot be broken. This is the power of trying again with God. The world may remain the same, but you do not. Trying again with God also means recognizing that every divine delay has purpose. God delays what is not ready. God delays what is not aligned. God delays what you are not prepared to handle. God delays what could harm you in the wrong season. But when God releases it, when the timing matches the preparation, everything begins to unfold with grace. What you chased before begins to chase you. What you forced before begins to flow. What felt impossible before becomes natural. This is the difference between moving with self-effort and moving with the divine alignment. And let me tell you something crucial. God is not calling you back to a battle that has no victory. God is calling you to a promise that has already been secured in the unseen. The outcome is not uncertain, only the process is. The victory is not questionable, only the journey feels unclear. But when God sends you, the result is already written. God does not push you toward confusion. God pulls you toward completion. Think about this. Every powerful story in history required a moment when someone decided to try again. But what made their second attempt victorious was not human strength, it was divine strength. This time, when you try again, you will not be trying with exhaustion, but with empowerment. You will not be trying with doubt, but with conviction. You will not be trying with fear, but with faith. God is not sending you back empty. God is sending you back filled. And perhaps the most profound truth of all is this: trying again with God guarantees transformation, whether immediate or gradual. Even if the situation takes time to shift, you will shift instantly. Because the moment you invite God into your effort, your entire spirit elevates. Your mind becomes clearer. Your decisions become sharper. Your confidence becomes deeper. Your energy becomes purer. God may fix the circumstance slowly, but God fixes your inner world immediately. You are being called to a higher version of yourself, not because you failed, but because God is ready to reveal what failure was preparing you for. This time, you are not returning to survive. You are returning to conquer. You are not returning to repeat. You are returning to rise. You are not returning to beg. You are returning to claim what has always belonged to you. There comes a time when you must look at the place where you once fell and say, this ground will not hold me again. Not because you have become stronger by yourself, but because you now rise carrying the strength of God. Trying again with God means you no longer approach life as a wounded survivor. You approach it as someone divinely reinforced. You walk into the same atmosphere, but you are not the same person. You are spiritually upgraded, internally restructured, and deeply anchored in a faith that does not shake under pressure. You carry a confidence that cannot be explained by human logic because it is rooted in the quiet assurance that God is guiding every breath you take. There is a sacred power that awakens within. When you finally understand that God has not forgotten you, the moment that realization becomes real, something in your soul shifts. The despair you carried begins to loosen its grip. The doubt that once held you hostage begins to weaken. The fear that paralyzed you begins to dissolve. Because now you know that the silence was not abandonment, it was a preparation. God was not ignoring you. God was assembling the pieces of your future in a way you could not yet perceive. Sometimes God's work is invisible until the moment He reveals the harvest. And when He does, you understand why you had to wait, why you had to grow, why you had to break before you could rise. This time, when you try again, you will not be stepping into uncertainty, you will be stepping into divine orchestration. Everything you thought was random becomes meaningful. Every detour becomes purposeful. Every delay becomes strategic. When God says, try again, it is not a suggestion. It is a declaration that the season has shifted. What was once blocked is now open. What was once heavy is now lifted. What was once confusing is now clear. You are not stepping into the same moment. You are stepping into a moment that has been spiritually recalibrated for your success. And understand this deeply. God will never call you to retry something unless He has already placed victory in the outcome. Your responsibility is obedience. God's responsibility is the breakthrough. You do not need to know how it will unfold, when it will happen, or who will help you along the way. You only need to move when God moves. Because when you walk in step with God, even the most complex paths become straight. The world may doubt you, but God has already decided who you will become. The world may not see your potential, but God placed that potential in you long before anyone had an opinion. Trying again with God means recognizing that faith is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to move forward, even when fear whispers in your ear. Fear will tell you that you will fail again. Fear will remind you of everything that went wrong. Fear will echo the voices of people who doubted you. But faith speaks louder. Faith says, God is with you. Faith says, the failure taught you what you needed to learn. Faith says, you are not who you were the first time. Faith says, the presence of God replaces every excuse. And when you listen to faith more than fear, the impossible becomes accessible. Some of you have carried the weight of past disappointments for too long. You replayed moments of failure, analyzed them, mourned them, and allowed them to shape your identity. But hear this clearly. Your failure was an event, not your identity. Your setback was a chapter, not your biography. Your mistake was a moment, not your destiny. God does not hold your past over your head. God uses your past to lift you higher. What you call embarrassment, God calls education. What you call loss, God calls pruning. What you call defeat, God calls development. Nothing in your life has been wasted, not even the moments you wished never happened. This time, when you try again, your posture will be different. You will no longer beg for strength. You will walk in it. You will no longer hope for clarity. You will move with it. You will no longer doubt your voice. You will speak with authority because your spirit has tasted what it feels like to be guided by God. You are becoming someone who no longer depends on external validation because you now understand that God's approval outranks every opinion. Trying again with God also means protecting the environment around your spirit. You cannot rise while staying surrounded by voices that drain your faith. You cannot grow while entertaining people who discourage your purpose. You cannot walk in divine clarity while exposing yourself to confusion. When you try again with God, you become more selective with what you allow into your heart, your mind, your conversations, and your day-to-day environment. You begin to understand that your spiritual atmosphere influences your spiritual altitude. And hear me, God is preparing to open doors that you once knocked on with trembling hands. But this time, you will not knock in weakness. You will knock with expectation because your heart knows that God is involved. The doors that ignored you before will open because the timing is now divine. The opportunities that rejected you before will return because you are no longer operating from human strength. You are moving with the power of God's favor. Favor does not ask for permission, it shifts circumstances. Favor does not bow to obstacles, it dissolves them. Favor does not wait for validation, it manifests because God wills it. Trying again with God requires that you understand the difference between human effort and divine empowerment. Human effort gets tired. Human effort becomes discouraged. Human effort needs applause, but divine empowerment is different. Divine empowerment gives you endurance beyond your natural limits. Divine empowerment gives you peace even when the situation is chaotic. Divine empowerment gives you resilience even when you feel emotionally stretched. Divine empowerment makes you rise after battles that should have broken you. Divine empowerment makes you walk into places where you once trembled and speak with authority you never knew you possessed. There is a reason God is calling you to rise again. It is because you have grown beyond the place where you fell. That failure no longer has permission to define you. That pain no longer has authority over you. That fear no longer has a command on your decisions. You are stepping into a new season, and this season requires a new you, the you that God refined through the very struggles you didn't understand. Your tears were not signs of weakness, they were seeds. And God never allows seeds to fall into the ground without a harvest attached to them. Every tear watered your transformation. Every cry deepened your dependence on God. Every silent battle strengthened your spirit. And now God says, rise, try again, you are ready. Now listen closely, because everything I have said leads to this moment. Trying again is not simply an act, it is a declaration of faith. It is the choice to step out of the shadow of yesterday's failures and walk fully into the light of God's purpose. It is saying, I will not be defined by what broke me. I will not be limited by what I lost. I will not be silenced by what I feared. Trying again with God is the ultimate act of trust, because it says, my strength may have failed me, my understanding may have deceived me, my timing may have faltered, but God never fails. God never deceives. God never delays without reason. This is your call to rise. This is your invitation to step forward. The moment to try again is now, but not with the weakness of your own making. It is with the power of God in you. The moment to try again is now, not with uncertainty, but with the certainty that God has already prepared the path before you. The moment to try again is now, not with hesitation, but with boldness, with courage, and with the unwavering belief that you are not walking alone. You are not stumbling alone. You are not fighting alone. God walks with you. God guides you. God strengthens you. God positions you for victory. Take everything that once held you down and lay it at the feet of every failure, every fear, every delay, every betrayal, every tear. Leave it there and rise. Rise with the knowledge that God's plans for you are greater than any plan you could ever have imagined. Rise with the confidence that every closed door, every rejection, every storm was shaping you for a divine purpose. Rise with the determination that this time you will not just try, you will succeed, because you are aligned with God. The difference between what failed and what will flourish is the presence of God. The difference between what ended in despair and what rises in triumph is God. This is why you must try again, but this time with God. Step boldly, walk faithfully, and rise fully, because God has already declared the victory that awaits you. Let your past strengthen you. Let your spirit guide you. Let your faith carry you. And let God be the power behind every move you make. This is your season. This is your moment. This is your life. Transform. Try again. But this time with God,